I follow Fox News on Twitter because I want to see what they're telling people, right? And it's a weird thing because it's not like it's all lies, right? There's often lies. They're there. But it's like a very different mixture of things than you would get from the rest of the media. And a lot of it is, it's very clear if you follow Fox News, like they're targeting an older white rural suburban audience, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of like weird human interest stories about an alligator popping out of the sewer and things like that, like things that are not they have no political agenda, but they're just trying to
get those old white people to pay attention.
Yeah, well, they're sending a message that the world is kind of scary and weird, and we need to protect ourselves.
There's an alligator on the golf course.
They really, like they love those stories, right? It's
the alligator on the golf course is my favorite.
It's just local news.
Yes.
It's the 10 o'clock local news put nationwide and added in there with some cheerleading for this bizarrely dysfunctional administration.
Well, isn't Sean Hannity now the #1 watched cable news program?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know the numbers.
I think it's #1, and it's fucking awful.
They just there was just a poll. This goes back to the social credit thing. They did a poll. What is the most trusted news source? And Fox News came in #2.
What's #1?
BBC.
That makes sense. Well, CNN is just taking a giant hit because of his constant berating of them, and then you see Jim Acosta. All these pro wrestling fans like giving him the finger and screaming at him, and
and it's
like what.
I do worry that this is a hard thing to come back from because once another thing that Trump said was that don't believe anything you're told, right? Unless you hear it from me. And Sean Hannity says the same thing. No, Tucker Carlson said the same thing, right?
Did he say that too?
Tucker Carlson said any other show than this one, don't believe it.
Yeah, look at this. Fuck the media he has on. Women for Trump. Yeah, it's just what? And then after listening to this Radio Lab podcast about these Russian troll farms and about how they implement these things, you got to think, is all of this organic? Is how much of this is orchestrated? How much of this attacking CNN is orchestrated?
It's part of it is it's just it builds on itself.
Well,
right?
all you need is just a little bit of a push.
I was talking to someone who is boasting about how hard Donald Trump works. That compared to previous presidents, he's really just putting in the hours.
Oh, that's not true,
right?
right?
Really the least plausible thing that you could think about.
Yeah, he
right?
wakes up late. He watches 8 hours of TV a day.
Plays golf every day. He's spends all the time at his own resorts. Of all the fantasies you could invent, that's a very weird one.
Well, people just love to find narratives that fit what would be, acceptable for their opinions. This side that they've taken.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, and so he give him credit. He gives people a narrative that works for them.
Well, CNN does it too, because CNN they spent so little time going over Donna Brazil's book about how the DNC had been corrupted and about how they had rigged the primaries for Hillary and really screwed Bernie Sanders over. This was not a narrative that they dwelled on. They didn't dwell on the fact that she illegally deleted 30,000+ emails and said they were about yoga classes. That shit is just as preposterous and it's just as damning against CNN as some of the nonsense that Fox News does. There's no one pure organization of news that's wholly objective.
It's not just as damning. I think that Fox News is special.
Especially
really do.
damning.
I think that Fox News was founded by a guy who was a political operative for the Republican Party, right? There might individual reporters from most news organizations tend to be liberal. But they also sometimes tend to overcorrect for that, to try to bend over backwards to be fair. Way more Republicans are quoted in the New York Times than Democrats ever are. And I think that there are certainly biases and certainly misrepresentations of reality from all of these different outlets. But I think Fox News is special among the major ones. I
would concede that. But I also think that one example, the New York Times is different because the New York Times, I feel like, because of the fact that it's actually writers and it's in text, you're not dealing with people that have to be comfortable performing in front of a camera, which eliminates a large swath of intellectuals.
Right. It's a very different medium. And they fact check and
it's carnival
corrections. In a way that the TV does not.
Yeah, it's theater. Yeah. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
And people like Sean Hannity, that if you read his written word, I don't think he would stand out.
No, and again, like I said before, I worry about what happens next because I don't think that Trump will win again.
I think he will.
All right, I don't think
it's entirely possible he'll win again.
Yeah, it would be. But again, I didn't
think he was going to win the first time.
No, I didn't. So I was just going to say, don't listen to me. Like before Donald Trump, I was really good at predicting who's going to win elections, and I have no ability once he's in the game. So. But I worry that the people who sort of are on his side are going to feel even more disenfranchised and disenchanted and angry after he loses again than they do now. And that's going to be a problem.
I think that's a real fear.